two of them still have. At 12.
I was facing the stage, I really couldn't see what was going on.
The keeper of the books.
Oh, she is.
Are they balanced?
They're,
Are they balanced?
they're all good kids.
Just
on the head of the
Yeah,
pin.
they're from your
Positive.
Yes, yes, he was great. It's fun seeing them grow up and fun watching them.
Any problems with
do
her?
stuff that their parents used to do.
Any problem? Very important.
Yeah.
That's a good.
I would never do that, would I, Mom? I'd look at her, look.
Oh, you don't have as good a memory as I do.
No,
I
she
used to
knows.
say all this.
Oh, did you really?
She knows she was a nice girl.
We had 3 courses. We put it in the middle.
Excuse me, one second, Mike. Is that open because it's over here? So when I open, did you shut it?
Why?
Because I couldn't close it, I thought maybe it's over here or something. Anyway, so you used to play foursome with them?
Well, yeah, we had 3 courses.
Yeah.
We would put in the middle group because we keep everybody out of
Oh,
it.
yeah. Sit. Oh.
I mean, would say, I had a 4. Your line got a 5.
So Sid was my mentor for years before he was.
Yeah.
He was,
We had a lot of fun.
You did? Oh, maybe we should use enough to decide. Do you want me to do that? Pictures that you sent me.
did you find it fun?
Well, I've had it for a while, but then I looked at it. I took pictures of me when I was in a play and he was in
You okay, baby?
Carrie.
No, oh, I can't, you know, I was looking over.
Thank you.
Don't know.
You're very nice. Is he
I'm
still
at that
around?
stage where I don't.
You don't remember.
Well, when you get old, you'll see what it's
Yeah,
like.
I can tell you. I can give you a force by something.
Oh, I didn't see this.
We don't, let's not compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you go to that same.
I have enough problems.
Not here.
Yes.
And I go there. Debbie, I've been going with Debbie for years and years. I found her saying everything. Just Debbie. I told Debbie.
I go to Jody.
Oh, I think Jody.
She's got dark hair.
I've been going with Debbie
We'll have to rebel
because I found her.
one of these days.
Okay.
Anytime. I told your wife that
Was in charge of the
you're
I'll do that.
not able to treat her and
system at the
you want
airport.
to decide to come over to sit and talk to you. And you know, I talk to everybody. So
I know, I do too.
it's just Grand Valley State the other day.
Yeah.
And I run into all kinds of people that I know. Good for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm active in the coffee.
That wasn't, if you got over that, you're
He
okay.
actually gave good business.
Yep.
Position.
He was
I used to have cards as a lawyer. I'm using those cards. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah. That's
I'm
good.
telling you.
Once or twice it's good, but last year we didn't see her at all.
I used to have real nice business cards. I ran out.
Yeah.
You can still get more, you can still get more printers, even though you're not in business, you can print them and say you're like president of the United States.
Marilyn's husband. I had him print this, mine say Marilyn's husband.
Pretty governor of Michigan, so that if you don't stop, whatever you want to do to the top, say you were president.
Okay.
I'm not from here.
I'm from Chicago, so I know how things work in Chicago. Chicago, you always carry cash with you.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
If
in
you see your
Chicago.
license,
How much will it cost? Even in traffic court, it's like $20 to get a traffic court attorney. If you want a guarantee, it's $50 because they have to share it with the judge.
sort of in a rush. I got a ticket in
My parents
Indiana,
are on there.
and about 10 minutes later, I got a
It was
ticket
so
in
political in those
Illinois.
days.
And I didn't get a ticket, they stopped me, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in a rush, slow down.
Oh,
My parents lived here.
I drove all the way.
Right.
5 hours.
my uncle, who was only like 9 years older than me, was a lawyer, and, I remember calling him whenever I would get a ticket.
Yeah,
And he said, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. We had some Jewish judges. We did, they would take care of the Jewish people.
But they weren't so involved in the temple, they just.
Sid would have changed the time for this because I think it was a Lions fan or a Chicago fan. I used to play golf with him. He'd keep everybody out, so we put him in the middle foursome, so he could watch the group in front, watch the group in back.
Really?
Somebody, oh, really? And he'd look over, he'd know Tuesday, they got it. He'd say, hey, John, what'd you get? 3. No, you don't know, I had 4. He would pull it every time.
Did you play with money on the side?
Oh, yeah,
Draw?
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people always did that, but then you're, otherwise you could cheat, who cares? Or when you're playing with money, a lot of the Jewish country clubs in Chicago, it's big money.
Oh, sure,
Twin Orchard, Grinmore, places.
yeah.
Yeah.
Play golf? When you were little?
His computer, that's all, that's what he does.
Yeah, Joseph, but so Bill wasn't in there. I'm sorry, Bill's not there. Bill's in this.
Exactly.
No,
He's not dead.
yeah, he is.
Oh, Bill, I thought you meant Bill Ornstein.
Bill Loomis. Yeah. What?
I'm not too old. That's a bit more than we're counting, since he's in the store and I'm not.
Somebody thought there was gonna be so many people coming that they wouldn't have enough room in here. I was talking to Robin.
Yeah,
Well, we're taking her out for dinner for Thanksgiving.
nice.
Oh, Jim, I didn't know.
She just lost her boyfriend. Did you hear about that? You know who her boyfriend was? She had a guy
Have an assigned seat?
Who is this?
No,
What's her
I
name?
randomly took this one.
Robin Turetsky.
Oh, okay,
There's a randomly assigned seat.
Luke Turetsky's daughter.
okay.
She worked.
It's assigned as soon as he sits there.
Somebody, I remember who was it, Campbell was talking about how our family always sat in those seats. We always sit in those seats. One day, someone was sitting, there, she said, that's my seat. They said, no, no, it's my seat. She left. Listening to that story, thinking,
Yeah.
I'm left.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, if you want to take it with you, you want it in or on the side? Again, it's there if you want, so you can, you have all day to decide. We're gonna go. Trying to see where you'd be most comfortable. You want to be in a pew or you want to be on a chair?
Ladies and gentlemen, if I may offer the suggestion, the family will sit up front, then you can walk up to them and see them all together. What you got?
Maybe.
Really?
This is okay for all
Yeah, sure. It's your, this is your service. I just set this up so it's nice for you.
Or you can sit with, some of you sit with, I can sit with you guys. I can sit with
Just come with me. Simcha, just come with me for a second.
Sorry. That's the true side of family is to tell you how to grab stuff right after the story before.
Just come with me for a second. This is Rabbi Krisha, Shomer family. This is the officiating rabbi. This is Rabbi Krisha. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to begin the funeral service of Sidney Benjamin Pachter. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. The sacred ceremony of Kriya was performed earlier, and at this time Rabbi David Krishef from Congregation Ahavas Israel will be officiating.
We'll begin the service in memory of Sid Pachter of Shmuel Binyamin ben Moshe V'Pearl with the recitation of a couple of psalms and readings. First, Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar bin odesho yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yinhalenu nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek lemahan shemo, gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi, shivtecha mishantecha hema yinachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai, Dishanta v'shem en roshi kosi rivaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'beit Adonai le'orech yamim. A psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Psalm 15. Adonai mi yagur be'ohlecha mi yishkon behar kodshecha. Do we deserve a place in God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, creator of heaven, earth, man, and woman, be gracious to your children who mourn. May the light of your presence dispel the gloom of absence so keenly felt today. Bless them with your compassion, empower them with your love, touch them with the fullness of your heart, that they may be granted inner peace. Was it not you who said, "Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will sustain you with my power." As we remember the blessings in the life of Shmuel Binyamin ben Moshe V'Pearl, Sid Pachter, we ask you, Eternal One, to remember your promise to us, and let us say, Amen. We'll continue by sharing some words of eulogy and remembrance, first by Sid's son, my colleague Rabbi Elliot Pachter, on behalf of his siblings.
Hi, everyone. I want to just say some thank yous to Rabbi Khrushchev and Ahavas Israel, which is, I think many of you know, this is my home synagogue. Used to have junior congregation in here with Seymour Rappaport, if you remember those names. And Eddie, can I call you Eddie? Okay. They call you Eddie. And Alisa and Dorothy and Tom, my cousins, for all that you did. Naomi, thank you for being with me every day. And one thing we always agreed on right from the start, that my mom and dad were your mom and dad and vice versa. And thank you for just all that you did for Dad with your loving care, your medical knowledge. Mike, thanks for being here today so we can all be together and with us on FaceTime on Friday. This really brings a lot of comfort and peace to Mom, and I think to Dad too. And Lori, if you're listening, we thank you for all you do for Mom every day, just to be a part of her life and comfort her. Valerie and Andy, I'm so happy you're here because you really just brought such joy to Grandpa by bringing your families to see him, and he just really appreciate it so much. Andy, especially this past, what a great visit, Labor Day weekend. It was just great. I want to say to Sandy and to Uri and to Avram and to Gabriel for just being there for Dad and for Mom. And Larry, I know you didn't do this for a reward, but I have to single you out because you've just been there for Dad and for Mom too since they moved to Chicago, and even before. You've been, let's face it, you've been Dad's go-to person for a while. Just want to thank you. There was a couple of weeks when you and Sandy were out of the country, and I stepped in. I was Larry for 2 weeks. That's really what I was. It's hard. Oh my God. And the others too, all played a part in Dad's life. I want to mention, it was interesting, not specifically because of Grandpa, but Grandpa was, believe it or not, I don't know if I know this, he was an actor. He was a musical theater. Both Marla and Johnny did high school theater. Who knows? And no, it was a direct line. And Johnny and to Natalie, our newest grandchild of Grandpa's, just for the wedding was just such a great time for Grandpa. Now let's talk about Grandpa. I'm sure my colleagues who are here, Rabbi Khrushchev, Rabbi Cantor is my rabbi. You get this comment, you do a funeral from a complete stranger, and somebody tells you, wow, Rabbi, it's like you knew him. We didn't know him. I just say what they tell us, right? Doing a funeral for someone you really know is this is the hardest eulogy I've ever had to write. I just know too much. I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to end. So just a few comments, and I'll try not to take up too much of your time. But I say this eulogy resembles my dad. It'll make you laugh, and might make you cry. It won't be perfect, but there'll be some good points. There was a visitor in my synagogue some years ago. He said, Rabbi, I know your father. I know him from Florida. What a nice man. I said, who do you think my father is? No, a lot of people thought he was a nice man. No, he was a good guy. My dad helped a lot of people. He was a leader. He was a leader of the synagogue. He was president of his golf club at the Woodlands and his Kings Point Condo Association. I'm just remembering these times. We had a next door neighbor. Some of you may even know the story. And my dad didn't know them well. My dad figured out that the husband abandoned her and left her with a pile of debt. And on his own, he went to the bank and he saved her house for her. And he gave her a job. He helped my grandparents. He would be so honored to be in this room where we remember that we associate the chapel at Ahavas Israel with our grandpa that Andy's named for. Our grandpa didn't have a lot of money. He gave a lot of money in its time so the synagogue could have the chapel first in the old building. It meant a lot to him. I remember when I was little, and Larry remembered this story, maybe Mike probably knew it before I did. I didn't know what was going on. My dad was putting something in an envelope. He says he was sending money to his mother. My dad didn't have a lot of money. He sent money to his mother, to Grandma Pearl, every month. Some things you got to know about my dad, which is just so important to tell. 2 days before my dad died, it was the yard site of my dad's father, Moshe Yaakov, that Mike is named for. My dad's 92. His father died 91 years ago. My dad doesn't remember his father. He did get to meet his father's 2 surviving brothers who lived in Israel, blessed memories, Uncle Zionville and Uncle Shmuel. My dad once told me he's not afraid to die because he's going to meet his father for the first time. I hope it's true. If you're watching on screen, some of you will appreciate this story more than others. Memory. Getting woken up at God knows what time in the middle of the night, getting thrown into the back of a station wagon when this was legal, put a mattress in the back of a station wagon. Some of us remember those days, right? And driving to New York. I hated that drive. I got car sick. But when we got there, we had a family reunion. We did it like almost every summer when I was little. Either at Bernie's house, my dad's brother on Long Island, or at Florence's house, my dad's aunt in New Jersey. Sister, what did I say? Aunt. Oh, my aunt, sorry, thank you. Mike and Larry and I and all the male cousins slept in the garage, and we had the greatest time. We're still talking about these family reunions, but I realized is that my dad really loved getting together with his brother, his sister, thank you, Bernie and Martha, Florence and Ben, with his mom, with his uncles, and he really loved the family. And he really taught us that through his own example to stay connected with the family. And we still stay connected, not as much as we should. We still stay connected. As many of you know, those of us who know me from the old time, the Resheskis, we're just so intertwined with them. We grew up mostly in Grand Rapids. The Birnbaums, our cousin Jamie is here. We loved them, we saw them, and Dad really got to know the Birnbaums even better when they all lived in Florida. They really became a part of his life. My dad worked hard to support us. Even as a kid, he as soon as he went to shul, but as soon as he had bar mitzvah, he went to work. He worked in a shoe store. He drove an ice cream truck. When he went to college, he did it with an ROTC scholarship, so he could afford to get through college, and he was in the Air Force. He tried a lot of different things, but I think the happiest years of my dad's life were the 20 years when they had the store, the Breton Village Apparel and the other stores, together with my mom, with Aunt Edith and Uncle Melvin. Really, those 20 years, 1975 to 1995, life was good. Life was good. He had some money in his pocket. Mom and Dad moved to Florida for the first time. That's the years when we all got married, when our kids were born. It was really, really special time for him. We all, in different ways, worked for Dad. I worked for Dad at the Plainfield store for a time. He was a manager. He wasn't the owner at that store. You work for Sid, especially when you're his son, you can't stand around and do nothing. There's always something to do. There's clothes, they have to be refolded, rehung, go in the dressing room. The hangers. They throw all the hangers at, go sort the hangers. He put me in the marking room at one time. There's always these things to do. One time, I was doing one of these jobs at the Plainfield store in the back room, sorting something, doing something, and there was another employee, happened to be a female. I told the story. Naomi got all excited. Who was that? I don't remember her name. But we're working, and she's got a piece of cardboard. She writes me a little message. So it's like fun. We're writing messages back and forth. We're doing the work, but we're writing these little messages. A couple hours later, my dad calls me back to the office. He's got this cardboard. I'm thinking, what did I write? He says, this is a gift box. He pulls out, he's got this ledger there. This is what I pay for the gift boxes. This is what they cost. What does it cost per box? Like 10 cents. I never made that mistake again and wasted a gift box. Dad taught us some good values. The other day, I was walking with, happens to be someone who's my boss at my school, but someone could be my daughter, young enough to be my daughter. We're walking into a building, and I go to hold the door open for her. Dad taught us when we were little kids, especially with Mom, hold the door open for your mother. He taught us when you sit down at a fancy meal, don't stick the napkin up here. It goes on your lap. How many grammar lessons we had at the table? Different from, not different than. What's that? Healthful. Oh, God. If we said, it's a healthy food, it's healthful. Right. He taught us how to pick up a check. He used to pick up the check. It was my honor when he finally let me pick up the check. The one lesson that I had to get rid of is he taught us to carry a hanky in our pocket. And Naomi got me rid of that habit. I'm sorry, disposable tissues. Sorry. The synagogue was always central to our lives. When we moved to Stony Brook, and you'll hear a message from him later, Dad, before he did anything else, he found us a shul, and that's where we met Rabbi Bill Lebo, big part of my dad's life. One high holidays, Rabbi Lebo gave one of these harsh sermons, and he said, stop dropping your kids off at shul. And all of a sudden, Dad came back to shul. He wasn't coming to shul. Mom brought us. Larry and I were going. Mike was off and probably in college already. And we used to go to shul regularly. And all of a sudden, Dad said, no, now I'm going to shul with you. We used to get to sleep in a little bit. We get there at 10 o'clock. That was no problem. All of a sudden, Sid's coming to shul. We got to be there. We got to be the first ones there. Got to get up like 7 o'clock to take a shower. A couple of years ago, 30 years ago, when Dad was 60, a little more than 30 years ago, Dad went to a program because he'd come back to Ahavas Israel and he was inspired. He went to a United Synagogue program. It's called Emun, and it changed his life even further. Not only did he go to shul, he started putting on tefillin every morning, daven 3 times a day. In fact, until recently, it was sad for us to see when we knew how bad he was feeling when he stopped putting on tefillin and stopped going to even Zoom Minyan. It was just too hard for him. Some of the time I spent with Dad, I don't know if my brothers will share the same memories. When we were little, we went to Riverside Elementary. We walked to school, we walked home for lunch, and then we went back for the afternoon. And Dad used to come home for lunch. At least those were the days when he was working at Plainfield. I'm not sure when it might have been different when you were in elementary. And he'd play catch with us after we ate. Throw the football, throw the baseball. I'm not a big golf. Larry's the golfer of the three. We all played golf, but I remember I couldn't wait to do this because my brothers got to do this before me. Go and walk with Dad on the golf course. It was just fun. It was just nice. Or go to the bowling alley and watch him bowl and drink a lot of pop. It was just good to be with him. I always thought I didn't get to do these things, but I realized there were a couple of times I got to do something, just me and Dad. There was one time that Dad went with Uncle Bernie and Grandma Pearl to Allentown and Bethlehem to visit the cemetery, and I don't know why they took me along. It was the 4 of us. He used to come to some of my high school basketball games. It was really cool. He just took time off of work to be there. And the last one I want to share is my brothers remember I was in, I'm the guy who always has the surgeries. I've had a few surgeries. So I was I had a ruptured appendix, and I was in this hospital on the pediatric floor, and they had limited visiting hours. I was a kid, and you couldn't visit, but my dad used to come by on his way to work, and he would come to my window of my room and knock on the window and wave to me. It was very, very kind of him. And now I'm getting ready to close, but this is the greatest story ever told. I have to say, Rabbi Khrushchev, I was telling Rabbi Khrushchev, I'm going to tell this story about how my parents met, and he said, I saw your mom a couple weeks ago, says, how did you meet Sid? And she said, we met in college. Come on. Okay. I'll try to speed up. This is told to me by Minnie Rashevsky. Okay. So you got to start. There's a woman named Fanny. Okay. Fanny is my dad's great aunt and also Uncle Melvin's aunt. Fanny's maiden name was Pachter, and she married a man named Rashevsky. Okay, so Fanny was married to a guy named Rashevsky. He had a brother. That brother was Minnie's husband. Okay. So my dad is going to go from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, University of Michigan, and through this Fanny, Minnie, Melvin, Edith. Edith's got a sister. Her name is Sylvia. Comes back to my grandmother, says, when you go to Michigan, look up this girl. Her name is Sylvia Altman. Note to parents of single children. Pick out partners for them. They like that. My dad looked at this piece of paper. This is told as Minnie Rashevsky somewhere knew this was happening. And he said to his mother, this is what I think of your name. So my dad goes to the University of Michigan. My mom goes to the University of Michigan. My dad's got 3 friends who are going to a dance. My mom meets 3. She's got 3 friends who are going to a dance. They end up at the same dance, 4 boys, 4 girls. They go to ask these 4 girls to dance. Guess which girl your father asked to dance? Minnie was, I don't know how she knew this. Your father goes to your mother, or to Sylvia, and says, care to dance? That's the way Minnie always said it. To which Sylvia said, don't mind if I do. Anyway, they danced. He said, what's your name? Sylvia. Sylvia what? Sylvia Altman. Where are you from? Grand Rapids. Sylvia Altman from Grand Rapids. Oh my God. That's a little more interesting than it just meant in college. That's how my parents met. They recently celebrated their 72nd anniversary. And yesterday in shul, I had the opportunity to read, and we read about how Isaac, that's my namesake, Isaac was about to meet his bride, whose name is Rebecca. And it says very simply, it says, when Rebecca realized, when she looked at this is the man you're going to marry, it says she fell off her camel. Well, you didn't fall off your camel, but you saw him. And regarding Isaac, we are told he saw her, he took her, and he loved her. You can forget everything else I said before. That's Dad. He found her, he took her, and he loved her. May he rest in peace.
We're now going to move down one generation, and I'm going to invite Gabriel and Avram to come forward and share some words on behalf of the grandchildren.
One of the titles that made Sid Pachter most proud was Grandpa. Anytime one or more grandchildren was in the room, everyone called him Grandpa, including his children, children-in-law, siblings, and our beloved Grandma Sylvia. Gabe and I would like to share a number of memories of our grandpa from the perspective of his 10 grandchildren and to respect his wishes of not going on for too long. Those of you who knew Grandpa well know that his patience was not his greatest virtue. Grandpa was a huge sports fan, particularly supportive of his beloved Michigan Wolverines. Uri and I went with Grandpa a number of years ago to watch a bowl game in Orlando. We had never went to Michigan games growing up, and after watching about 2.5 quarters of Michigan losing, and driving over 3 hours from South Florida to get there, Grandpa got up and said, "Time to go." There was no argument. Grandpa made a ruling, and the family was headed for the parking lot.
Fast forwarding a few years, this past January, Uncle Larry, Uri, Avram, and I had the privilege of watching Michigan win the national championship with Grandpa at Gidwitz. Grandpa assured us in advance that he would not kick us out early, no matter the outcome, and I will always deeply cherish the memory of watching the Maize and Blue win it all together. For Grandpa, the Wolverines will live on forever as national champs, with a powerful voiceover from his Michigan classmate, James Earl Jones, who also passed away earlier this year. Grandpa was an excellent golfer, and us grandchildren had mixed feelings about playing with him because he'd always win, and he'd regularly critique our shots. Yet, we cherished that glint in his eye, or the soft high five when we occasionally hit a good shot, or even more so when we listened to Grandpa's wise advice. Avram had the most recent experience of playing golf with Grandpa and actually beat him once this year at age 92. And there are two key takeaways here. One is that Grandpa remained a highly skilled and competitive golfer until age 92. And two, he was still playing golf at age 92. Talk about some life goals.
Grandpa boasted some impressive golf accomplishments. He recorded 4 holes in one. I am nowhere close to that. He was the club champion at the Woodlands for multiple years, and he shot his age, an amateur golfer's aspiration, regularly since turning the age of 70 and a half. To be fair, he shot a 71, but Grandpa rounded up and said it was his insurance age. In addition to his exceptional golf skills, Grandpa was just an incredibly smart guy. He would regularly call out people who knew less than him for their stupidity. While to some this may have been derogatory, for Grandpa, it was just a sign of how much he valued being learned. He was an avid reader, particularly enjoying biographies, perhaps none more so than President John F. Kennedy. 2 days ago, as Grandpa took his last breaths, it coincidentally was also the 61st anniversary of JFK's death.
Grandpa liked to show off his intellect through crossword puzzles. He often skipped the Monday or Tuesday New York Times crossword because they were too easy for him. When visiting Grandpa, he would often ask us a clue to see if we knew it. While framed as a means to help him solve the puzzle, Grandpa almost always knew the answer already. He just wanted to see if we knew it and take pride if we did. One night at the West Bloomfield Jewish Community Center, Grandpa was a bit off his game. He was visiting from Florida to take in a local production of The Drowsy Chaperone. He went to the restroom and bumped into a random actor saying, "Excuse me, sir," ever quite the gentleman. The actor turned to Grandpa and said, "Hello, Grandpa. It is your grandson, Johnny." Which led Grandpa to exclaim with delight. To be fair, Johnny was in full makeup, including a fake mustache, so I guess Grandpa gets off the hook for this one. And what was most meaningful is that he and Grandma had traveled in to take part and view Johnny's performance.
Grandpa kept a paper list of many, 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 many things, including family birthdays, although he had memorized most of them. He would purchase birthday cards months in advance and prepare them to be mailed, always arriving on time, and calling, not to say happy birthday, but to make sure that the card had arrived. Until a certain age, he would also include a little bit of gelt in each card. However, once the grandchildren started working, he stopped. But the cards kept coming.
Shortly before his recent health decline, Grandpa announced that he would take a break from sending the birthday cards. I said he was entitled to this break after so many decades of sending. However, he had 2 left to send, one to our cousin Jason and one to Aunt Martha. They can fight it out as to who got Grandpa's final birthday card. Grandpa once sent his great-granddaughter Kaya 3 cards for her 3rd birthday, He said that he sent the 3 cards not because it was Kaya's 3rd birthday, but because he couldn't decide which one of the 3 cards to send, and he wanted her to have all 3.
Grandpa is what some people might call a shul rat. He was active in daily minyan, often leading services or reading Torah. Although not professionally trained as a cantor, he professionally laid the high holiday services down at the Woodlands for a couple of years. Grandpa had the best musical ear of anyone in the Pachter family. He would always make sure to let the rest of us know it. Just a couple of months ago, he chanted a very challenging Haftorah flawlessly. More importantly than his own Jewish knowledge, Grandpa got great nachas from his grandchildren participating in services. He even was able to arrange for 2 of us to read Torah before we even had our bar mitzvahs. After moving up north to Gidwitz in Chicago, Grandpa regularly attended the on-site Jewish studies classes and often offered his own opinions on the curriculum. Some of the Gidwitz residents mentioned that his love of Judaism shined in everything he did. They loved how much he knew about Judaism and how much he taught them. Grandpa's Judaic knowledge permeated the walls and into the hearts and the minds of every Gidwitz resident. While out for brunch a few decades ago, Uri asked my dad, "Why is Grandpa eating that?" Grandpa had ordered something not kosher, and the kosher-keeping 4-year-old Uri didn't really understand. Grandpa had heard this, and from shortly thereafter, he kept kosher to be a dugma, or a role model for his grandchildren and friends around him. This value remained important to Grandpa even at age 92 while living at Gidwitz. They needed a new mashgiach, or kosher supervisor, and Grandpa offered up myself. While some family members, myself included, first thought Grandpa would be better fit for the job, I have now served as a mashgiach at Gidwitz for several months, thanks to Grandpa's love and care for not just his family, but his community at large.
While we may not have kept to Grandpa's desire for a short speech, we hope that we've painted a picture of the many ways he impacted the lives of his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, and others in his orbit. While my dad shared about this in greater detail, Grandpa's courtship of Grandma and their marriage are examples likely to never be duplicated. Grandpa shared proudly with us in recent years that he wanted to marry Grandma so quickly after meeting her so they could appropriately share their love. 70 years later, they celebrated their anniversary under the same chuppah used for Johnny and Natalie's ufruf. On Grandpa's last day of his life, Grandma was right by his side, sharing her love and telling Grandpa to be at peace. On top of Grandma's encouragement, there was another familiar voice telling Grandpa to be at peace. The New York Times editors pick a random 5-letter word each day for millions of people to guess, and you get 6 attempts. On Friday morning, shortly before leaving for the hospital, I completed the Wordle to try and do something normal on what was to be a very abnormal day. I got the Wordle in 4 tries, a respectable but very average score. After revealing the word of the day, I broke down. It was P-E-A-R-L. Our great-grandmother had manifested herself via millions of wordlers to welcome Grandpa into Olam Haba. You can't make this stuff up. From the recent passing of James Earl Jones to the shared yard site with John F. Kennedy, and most meaningfully, Bubby Pearl revealing herself in the Wordle to comfort her son and our family. Having Grandma and Grandpa join us full-time up north in May of last year has been truly a blessing, and we'll cherish these years forever. We'll miss the glint in Grandpa's eye when he was so proud of us. strong index finger, encouraging us to follow in his example, and the quiet power of his voice, mostly when expressing his love, but even when trying to teach us a lesson. Grandpa, we'll always love you, and you'll always be a part of us. Thank you for being such a dugma for us to follow.
I think I can speak on behalf of everybody here when I say thank you to each of you for those beautiful words. So I just have a few brief thoughts of my own and a few thoughts that I want to carry to you from others who have written in. So first of all, to Sylvia and to Elliot and Naomi and Larry and Sandy and Michael and Lori, and to the 10 grandchildren and the 4 great-grandchildren, from me personally and from this congregation, and also to the extended family of Sylvia's sister Edith, the extended Richevsky clan. We extend condolences to each of you on the loss of a beloved husband and father and grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, and friend to many. Shmuel Binyamin ben Moshe Yaakov et Pearl, Sid Pachter. Stuart Rappaport, the mostly retired cantor of this congregation, wrote me that, I'm just going to read his words. He says, "I was saddened by the news of the passing of Sidney Pachter. Not only did he serve as president of Ahavas Israel, but also chaired many of the committees that help our congregation function. But for me, it was even greater respect and affinity I had with Sidney. It was Sidney and Rabbi Glazer who first thought of having me serve as chazan. After the first high holiday service I conducted, Sid and I approached each other to wish each other a Shana Tova. Sid grabbed me and gave me a warm and long-lasting hug. When my father was unable to be Baal Shacharit as he was aging, I met and taught Sidney the Nusach for Yamim Tovim. Sid approached with a full heart and did a great service for Ahavas Israel. In later years, Sid became a proficient Torah reader, following what his sons had learned for their B'nai Mitzvah. Sid had a big heart, but inside was the warmth and love to try to do mitzvot and walk humbly with God." That's from Stuart Rappaport. So Sid had a Long Island rabbi who just sent a couple of lines. This is Rabbi Bill Lebo, Elliot mentioned earlier, who simply writes, "Bev and I are so saddened by the news of Sid's death. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, we have such love for the Pachter family and have long been moved by Sid's care for us and his warmth." And there's a portion of eulogy from Rabbi Paul Plotkin, who is Sid's Florida rabbi. I'm going to share with you. The theme is familiar from the previous two speakers. Rabbi Plotkin writes about Sid, he did not suffer fools or bad golfers well. I would measure a putt in my mind's eye and then practice my swing arc for the right distance. It took time, and I was a nervous novice, and suddenly, before putting, a booming voice yelled out, "Stop davening over the putt already." Sid was a great golfer, a voracious reader, a billionaire in the currency of opinions, and at least in my opinion, a crusty old geezer with a real soft spot and a warm heart he worked hard to hide, but that leaked out anyway. I missed him when he moved to Chicago, especially after I broke 100 on a regular basis and didn't have him there to see and claim a little of the share of my improvement. I will miss him even more now that I can't even call him to see how he's doing. My deepest condolences to Sylvia and the boys and all the generations that have come. I will cherish the story of how he and Sylvia met at college and how we could talk about anything in the Jewish world and how informed he was. Baruch Dayan Emet, praise be the righteous judge, and thanks for letting him be a part of my life, Rabbi Paul Plotkin. Now my thoughts. Sid Pachter was president of Ahavas Israel from 1992 to 1994. During that time, he took a chance on hiring a young rabbi right out of the seminary. So to some, because of that, especially when that young rabbi did or said something that this other person didn't like, I became known as Sid's rabbi. I suppose Sid had his Long Island rabbi, his Florida rabbi. I'm his Grand Rapids rabbi. And I don't mind that description at all. Sid was one of a handful of people who, as I knew him, lived out his beliefs by making the synagogue and Jewish living an absolute priority in his life. Weekday minyan in this very room. He came regularly at every opportunity. He showed up for Shabbat and holiday services. He was there from the beginning, and those of you who were there at the beginning know that when we were supposed to start, Sid would be sitting right about over there, pulling out his watch, going like this if I started a minute late. But he was there at the beginning. He was there to remind us it was time to start. He was there at the end, reminding us that it was time to end. The Jewish communities of Grand Rapids, Long Island, Florida, and anywhere else where he happened to be benefited from the davening and the laning, the Torah reading skills of Sid Pachter. Yesterday I shared a commentary from the Maggid of Koznitz on the parasha yesterday, Chayei Sarah. It's on commentary on the death of Abraham based on Genesis 24:1. Avraham Zaken Ba Bayamim. Abraham was old, aged, advanced in days, advanced in years. I'm not going to go over the whole Devar Torah, but I wrote this Devar Torah on Thursday. I didn't hear the news about Sid until earlier on Friday morning. So I wrote this without connecting in any way to Sid. But then on Friday afternoon, I realized what I had in front of me, and I want to share it with you. Because the suggestion of this Maggid of Koznitz is that when we live our lives with one foot in the temporal world of mortality, and the other foot, so to speak, our soul, hewn from the quarry of eternity, lives in transcendent space. So part of us is here, part of us is in the transcendent world. And he suggests that the closer we get to death, the narrower the space between that upper world and the lower world, the world of the higher soul and the world of our mortal body. As we age, we increase in wisdom. We live more and more in the transcendent space right alongside our own temporal space. And I've seen this happen over and over again. Somebody, as they age, as they approach death, slowly loses interest in the physical body and is connected more and more strongly and fully in that world of eternity. I think that was what was happening with Sid, not just 2 weeks ago, but over the course of the 31 years that I overlapped with Sid. I didn't know him as a young father, but only as a man approaching and then going beyond retirement. I'm told that as a young man, Sid was a bit scary. I can see that. He continued to be intimidating. But sometime after he retired and moved to Florida, I began to see that remarkable softening. He didn't lose all of his religious zeal and commitment, but it seemed to be expressed in softer, more happier ways. Now, some people, as they age, don't really change. If they have unpleasant qualities as a younger person, those unpleasant qualities only get magnified as they age. But Sid, the way I see him as he aged, underwent what is to me a remarkable transformation. It's as if he threw off the scales covering that kinder and gentler soul. The loving father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, revealing the holiness and the light that was there all along, but was just covered up. And that kind of change doesn't happen by accident. It only happens with a conscious will to make it happen. He needed to decide that he wanted to become a slightly softer person than he had been. You might not be able to teach an old dog new tricks, but Sid is one of a handful of people who demonstrate that human beings have more potential than old dogs to continue to learn and grow as we age. So the Torah reading and the Haftarah reading that we read yesterday contain two examples of dying. One, King David approached death with his family in utter chaos. And the other, Abraham, approached death by carefully spelling out his legacy to his family. Now, I don't want to overdraw a comparison, but if I were to compare Sid to one or the other, I'd say he drew more from Abraham than David, and that was part of his process in those years that I've known him. None of us are perfect, and most of us will die leaving regrets and loose ends. But Sid, at his end, was content. When I saw him 2 weeks ago, he was optimistic, and he was also realistic. He hoped for more days, but he wasn't fighting against his ailing body. May the memory of Shmuel Binyamin ben Moshe Yaakov Pearl Zichrono Livracha remain with us as a blessing. Tehi Nishmato Tziru Rabbi Torah Chaim, may his soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Amen. Following this service, burial will be at the Greenwood Cemetery, 1373 Leonard Street Northwest. And following that, the Sudat Havra'ah will be back here at Ahvas Israel. And we will have a Shiva Minyan at 5 o'clock this evening. The rest of the Shiva will take place in Highland Park and later in the week in West Bloomfield at the homes of Larry and Elliot. Please rise for a memorial prayer. Eon Malei Rachamim.
Ya Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Amsei Menuchan Chanat Kanfei Hashkina Malot Kedoshim Otorim Gezor Akia Mazirim Et Nishmat Reb Shmuel Ben Yamin Ben Reb Moshe Yaakov Geveret Perl Shehalach Leolamo Began Eden De Menuchato Anabal Rachamim Hasirehu Beseiter Kenafek Leolamim Utzror Bitzrachim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachlato V'Yenuch B'Shalom V'Mishkavaho V'Nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Sidney Pachter, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Greenwood Cemetery. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car at the back of the funeral procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to a cemetery. As the rabbi mentioned earlier, all the information about Shiva, memorial contributions can be found on the service folder. And for those of you who are joining us online, that information can be found on the funeral home's website. At this time, we ask everyone to rise as the pallbearers come forward and as we escort the casket of Sidney Benjamin Pachter from the sanctuary. Then you may return to your cars.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the car. We'll get your coat. Where's your coat? Is it in the room? It's in the library.
I'll get her.
Sandy will go get her coat, and she's gonna go to the bathroom.
But it was just like that. We were watching like a Comedy Central
everything in there. Then just cut the floor.
That's so funny. Oh, God. I just remember as a kid, he was very stylish.